You know, the tragic reality of gun violence has already shaped this election with the attempted assassination of former President Trump just last month. And we know that gun violence is a scourge across the country, especially here in the Windy City. Now, advocates, even survivors at the convention, are hoping to hear how Vice President Harris would create life-saving change if indeed she's elected. David Hogg, who survived the Parkland shooting as a teen, founded March for Our Lives and Leaders We Deserve, which works to elect young progressives. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm just curious, what do you think of Republicans who are saying, whoo, Walz and Harris are too progressive, extreme progressives? Do you agree with that?
No, I don't think they're extreme progressives. I think they represent what the vast majority of Americans want. You know, their backgrounds speak to that. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, they come from, middle-class backgrounds. And I think that there's just something incredible about the fact that somebody who's the daughter of immigrants from California and somebody who grew up in a town of 400 in Nebraska are now, and dedicated their lives to public service, are now running together to be, President and Vice President of the United States. And I think what Americans look at more than anything is how do they feel? Could they feel like they could get a beer? And certainly I think a lot of Americans, everybody knows a Tim Walz, right? And they feel very comfortable and excited because they didn't want a rematch of 2020, and that's why I think there's been a surge of enthusiasm.
Just talking about the youth movement. Let's talk about his daughter for a moment. She's put out these videos with her dad that have gone viral. Everybody's talking about hope, and I'm going to ask you another question about that in a minute, but what's your reaction to how she's drawn in maybe the younger voters? Has she, and are you guys talking about her?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of young people talking about her. Of course, she's her own person, separate from her dad. But I think
they make a pretty dynamic team.
They do. They absolutely do. And for me, when I started going out very early and talking about Governor Walz because I had seen him speak at the Nebraska State Democratic Convention, and I thought, wow, this guy is just so amazing. He represents, progressive values, but comes from a rural background. Right. And he knows how to talk to everybody, including people who don't agree with him, having run in such a competitive district. And when it comes to hope, she was really the biggest endorsement to me in my eyes of why I thought that Governor Tim Walz would be such a good vice president, because anybody who has a teenage daughter can tell you it's very hard for them, if not impossible, to fake their emotions and how they really feel about their parents.
Oh, trust me, I know. I'm there right now.
And, in those videos, you can so clearly tell that Hope loves her dad. And to me, that's the best judgment of character, right? It's somebody like that who's got a middle-class background and, just has a great relationship with his kids.
Well, and she seems to have an impact on him because, Walz is a lifelong hunter. He's talked about that. He was endorsed by the NRA in his congressional race. And then, during the Parkland shooting, his daughter, I was reading up on this, actually begged him to stop gun violence, and he returned the NRA's money, helped pass comprehensive gun control. What does a story like Tim Walz and just the influence there on behalf of his daughter mean for gun control advocates like you?
I think it shows that he's a principled leader that, has his beliefs, but ultimately when times change, when he sees the clear side of, this is not your grandfather's NRA anymore. When he sees that change and there's somebody who comes to him like his daughter and says, we need to stand up and do something about this, he listens. He's not driven by the political pressures. He's driven by the moral ones to make sure that he's always doing the best thing in his eyes to do. That's the reason why when he was a high school teacher, he supported the Gay Straight Alliance at his high school, right? That's why he was...
At a time where it wasn't, popular or trendy, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it was a pivotal time.
Exactly. We know that those clubs save lives because those young kids, they feel so much isolation a lot of the time. And we also know that he was an early supporter of gay marriage, even back in 2006 in a super red district. And I think what it shows is the story of America, right? We have guns very interconnected throughout our history, and it's not to say that if you support gun control that you can't use guns. I was on the shooting team when I was in college, right? I wanted to talk to the people who disagreed with me most because I know, like Governor Tim Walz does, that just talking past each other isn't how we're going to make progress on this issue. It's talking about what we can agree on, even if it's not everything, and realizing that, look, no gun owner, no person in this country wants gun violence to continue. So let's focus on what we can agree on, like disarming people that are a risk to themselves or others, like the shooter at my high school was, who repeatedly threatened to shoot up my high school, right? Common sense solutions like that Governor Tim Walz represents. And that's why I'm really excited to support him in this cycle, because it shows the evolution of the Democratic Party.
I forgot about being on the shooting team in college, about you. How did you after surviving Parkland. Tell me how that sort of came about and how you were okay with that and your philosophy. And because I bet students came up to you and said,
they were.
yeah, like,
There were. So, you know,
What's
when I
going
was
on?
there, I was actually in a shooting competition one time when I was in college. And in the middle of this competition, the head of the team and the president of the sportsman club I was at came over to me and said, "What's your name?" And I said, "David." And they were holding up my Wikipedia page on his phone.
Oh,
He's
boy.
like, "David what?" And I was like, "David Hogg." And he says, "You know, are you here to take my guns away? Are you here to protest?" And I said, "Look, I'm here for the shooting competition, but I'm also here because I know that I'm sure that there are probably some assumptions that you have about me and some that I may even have about you that are not entirely accurate. And instead of us just assuming what each other think, I came here to have a conversation and also to become a better shot because I've been shooting guns my entire life since I was in 4th grade. My dad was an FBI agent, right? And I said, now we could either debate this and, you know, continue talking about the fact that you probably don't want to ban a gun like the AR-15 that I do, but you probably do agree that we need more mental health funding for the 2/3 of gun deaths that are suicides in this country. He's like, well, yes, of course. I said, well, you could either continue to try to, we could have a debate here and go nowhere, or you could help me become a better shot. And of course, he goes over and coaches me, and I've, you know, remained in touch with a lot of those people in the time since. And it's to show that, you know, there is division on this issue, but there's a lot of progress that can be made, even in the area, even if we do have broader disagreements, because we all do agree on what really matters, which is the fact that nobody wants gun violence to continue in this country. And it's not easy, obviously, going out and being part of that club, but I realize the job of an activist is not to be comfortable and surround myself in the liberal bubble that is Cambridge, Massachusetts, but to go out and talk to the people who don't agree with me and figure out how we can make progress as a country, because this is so much bigger than the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. It's about the future of our country and our children, and I know everybody wants their kids to be safe and be able to have them, you know, in school, and wants their biggest stressor to be their next math test and not whether or not they survive math class.
So great to see you.
Great
Thanks
to see
for
you
being.
too.
Yeah, I'm glad you were with us. And at the end of the week, let's talk about what you thought about what everyone had to say. In particular, Walz and Harris about gun control.
Yeah, I mean,
let's follow up with each other.
They're doing a lot of work. We've seen since President Biden was elected to office, we've seen a 20% reduction, or a near 20% reduction in gun homicides in this country. And that's nowhere near enough, right? But part of the challenge is we're not going to hear about the shooting that doesn't happen on the news, of course. But we know, for example, since the passage of the red flag law in Florida, or the passage of the first federal gun law in 30 years, that Vice President Harris and President Biden took the lead on, that we've seen over 800 high-risk individuals under the age of 21 be prevented from buying guns like the AR-15 and other semi-automatic rifles because of the expanded background check process passed by that law, along with the billions of dollars invested in mental health, school safety, and community safety programs. And the truth of the matter is, part of what helped to make that possible and the creation of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention was the election of Congressman Frost, who was a former March for Our Lives organizer and now is the youngest member of Congress. I actually hired him from my dorm room in college, and then I was working on his campaign as a junior in college, and he ended up being elected to become the first Gen Z member of Congress. And
Aren't we talking to him, Diana? Yeah, we're going to be talking to him. Yes, we are.
Amazing.
Oh, they're giving me a rap. Wait, I can keep talking to David Hogg.
Well, if you want to know more, you can go to leaderswedeserve.com.
Done. And when we talk with Frost, maybe we can bring you back and then have a dual conversation. Sounds good. Good to see you, David.
Thank you so much.